What's up, y'all? Happy Tuesday. Can y'all hear me well?
Yeah, I can hear you.
What's up, man?
Y'all hear me okay?
Y'all look crispy.
What's up? Can you hear?
What's happening,
You
man?
guys hear me okay?
Perfecto.
Awesome.
So, welcome to Launchpad, everybody. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on, I think we're on Facebook and on the Maxwell app. Make sure before we get started, you guys do me a favor. Smash that like button, that thumbs up button. Share this in every group and on your Facebook page. I see y'all, everybody in here from Atlanta, Miami, everywhere right now. So today's episode of Launchpad is really about Justin talking about, it was like big ideas, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
there you go.
exactly.
So if you weren't here last week, Justin, remind everybody what you're going to be talking about today.
So we talked about, I'm going to be coming. So I'm Justin Winters, aka the Big Idea, and what we're going to be talking right, what we're going to be talking about on this show, at least today, is if you've got a big idea, how do you make it, come to life? I'm sure many of you have been like, man, I just got this huge idea. And it might be software, it might be a service, it might be a business idea. Today, we're going to focus a little bit on, like, if you wanted to build software, it'll kind of have that slant. If you had like an idea for like an app or something like that, because most businesses nowadays are tech, like they have an app. Like, I don't know many businesses that aren't online in some form or fashion. So that is the business of the digital age. And we're going to talk about, how would you build it? Even if you can't code, how do you get these ideas off the ground? So that's what we're going to discuss. Legit.
So a lot of people have ideas. A lot of people never launch these ideas because it just sounds crazy. Like, how is a person that, one, knows nothing about apps going to have an idea that involves an app and take it from idea to conceptual to the big guy? And the reason why Justin's going to speak on this topic is because this is what he actually does for a living, right? That's what he does. He takes somebody's idea and he turns it into big ideas and pushes it along. And then Vince and I are just going to be sitting in the background, twiddling our thumbs.
Yeah.
Twiddling our thumbs,
Yeah,
because
pretty much.
only code I could do is a code on the PlayStation 2 when you can get a cheat code. Cheat code.
But you got big ideas. You know what I mean?
We gonna
We all
see.
have
So,
big ideas. That's why we work together. So.
but before we go into the big idea, what's some things y'all want to talk about this week? Some kind of hot topics, some current events, some things y'all seen that's just like, let me think about this, or something you've been waiting for all week since last Tuesday to say, yo, I gotta talk about this.
That was a sinister laugh. You got one? I mean, it's a bunch of stuff, man. We talked about how fast the news cycle is. The thing that, honestly, because I don't want to spend a bunch of time on this, I want to get to the big idea discussion. Did you guys watch? Did you see Redemption Song? The little piece that Dave Chappelle just put out?
I did.
Oh, yes, I did see that. Sorry. Yes, I saw that.
Bruh, that's worth 5 minutes to talk about.
Okay, let's do it. Because was it 10, 13 minutes long? Make sure I seen the whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was literally like 11 minutes long. And I kept clicking around because I was like, oh, this must be just a blurb. There must be like a fuller version of it or something.
That was it.
It was literally like 11 minutes long. Yeah, that's what it was. And it was like a follow-on. So you saw his last big special, right? Mm-hmm. I forget what that one was called. Golly, I can't remember the name of it. But this one, well, in that one, he had talked about his beef with Comedy Central, how they jerked him out of his money. And he basically told the fans, he was like, look, I'm coming to y'all directly. You guys are my real boss. Stop watching Chappelle Show because they never did right by me and they owe me money. And if y'all just stop watching the damn show, it's not going to be worth it to them. And maybe they'll do the right thing. So fast forward, he puts out this joint, I don't know, 4 days ago, 5 days ago, whatever. It's 11 minutes long. People did it. People stopped watching the show. Comedy Central came back to the table. Netflix took it down. Even though they hadn't done anything wrong, right? They just wanted to be a good partner to Dave. They took it down. So he comes on Redemption Song and he's like, yo, y'all did it, right? Another David Goliath thing, right? He said they paid me millions of dollars. I got my license back. And And he just, it was just a dope special in 11 minutes, just kind of talking about what had happened since he had done that big request out to his fans. But like everything he does, man, it was insightful. It was funny. But I feel like Dave is moving away from needing to make you laugh.
He's almost becoming, I think he's talking about things that he's always going to make us laugh. But I think he's starting to talk about the things that, because he has so much money and so much control, he doesn't care if you like it.
Yeah.
And he's kind of a well-rounded guy, so he can kind of speak on perspectives from a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's becoming more of like a social commentary, guy. People that, even though he says he doesn't want to be, but people, look to him to, sort of describe what's going on in this moment and get his take on what we should do, or at least how we should think about it. He always provides some framing that is, you didn't think about it that way, which is part of his genius.
Right. Yeah. And I don't know if it was him, but I heard some comedians say one time, they were like, the trick to being a really great comedian is you don't have to always be funny, but you do always have to be interesting. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's where Dave's whole persona has evolved to. I mean, he's older, first of all. He's like 45, 46 years old now. But I don't think he feels like he has to make us laugh every couple of minutes. He's like, I'm going to give you some social commentary. I'm going to tell you about my life. I'm going to make you laugh too. But this was just really an example of doing that commentary thing in like genius level, like GOAT level. So if you haven't seen it, y'all should go check it out.
He talked about the insurrection. We just going to skip over that.
Oh, no. Oh, yeah. Go there. Yeah, he did talk about that.
He talked about the insurrection and how that all this rhetoric has created this unbelievable feeling between a lot of people, and he was like, yeah, I mean, white people had this feeling for 30 minutes, whether it's wrong or right. He was like, you've had this feeling for 30 minutes and you stormed the Capitol.
Right.
And he was like, he said, I'm not here to judge you. Yeah, and I'm not saying, and I only watched it once while I was getting dressed or something, but from what I got from it, he was like, I don't care if it's wrong or right of what you did, but you went through something that you felt like you were violated, and that's how you reacted. What did you get from it?
Yeah. That was deep, bro. That was I mean, he could have spent the whole 11 minutes talking about that. He was like, imagine if black folk. What he said was,
it don't work.
White America is right. He said it doesn't work, but he said white America is afraid that black folk will act the way that they would if they were treated like this. You know what I'm saying? And he was like you said, they felt this way for 30 minutes, being facetious or whatever. And they were in the Capitol rubbing feces on the walls. That's what that literally happened.
The comedy part of it.
And he said, that was the comedy part of it. Although that did really happen.
Okay.
They really did do some foul, nasty stuff. But he was like, yeah, man, we have figured out that doesn't work. Like, that's not going to get you, what you desire. But it is interesting to see how when you felt like you were pushed, right, like your rights had been abridged and this, that, and the other, y'all literally stormed the seat of power, bro.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
And I think that's what he was saying. Like, no matter, I'm not here to talk about how you feel is right or wrong. I'm talking about how you reacted to that. And
that's right.
And now you kind of get to see, what it feels like.
Yeah.
And like now it's like, see, I told you would get mad. And that's kind of what it felt like, what he was saying.
Right.
Justin,
so anyway, that was a touchstone moment for me. Yeah. Go ahead, Justin.
Yeah. I mean, I think, any great comedy, person, genius like he has, what they do is they frame life and they look at it through a lens that we just wouldn't consider. He brings up the things that aren't as obvious. And then you're like, I just never even thought about it like that. And his way of always, and we're actually going to talk about this when we talk about big ideas, how you actually, and comedians are the kings of big ideas because they take, two incongruent thoughts, right? And they flip it in a way that you just didn't expect. There's always this element of surprise. And that's a lot about how you generate big ideas, how you generate novel ideas, how you create and innovate. So yeah, I mean, I definitely always love to hear his perspective. You know, I love how he compared to what happened during the insurrection are the things that the government and white Americans for a long time were scared that how blacks would react, especially during civil rights, and they actually acted the exact opposite. And then he drew the comparison that you felt this pressure of oppression that doesn't even compare to the oppression that blacks have felt in America, and look what the result was. And so so he was drawing those comparisons. So that's a great way to bring ideas across, is to always show them against something else. And so yeah, I mean, I thought it was excellent. I love Dave Chappelle. He's a philosopher of our time. So
I'm gonna give it another watch for sure, but I don't want to spend too much time on Dave Chappelle. But let's talk about for a quick 10 minutes. Let's talk about anything new that you heard coming down the pipeline on real estate. Anything you guys deal with a lot of customers, right? REI Rail. I need like a REI Rail button. REI Rail, REI Rail, REI Rail. But you deal with a lot of customers. So tell me anything you've seen coming out from the national news, or something that you've picked up or learned from a customer.
I mean, the big story for us this week really is more so geared towards realtors. We were talking about our perspective of what the ruling back in October, how that's really going to change the retail market. And essentially what happened is that the DOJ came down against the National Association of Realtors and said, you have to disclose buyer fees on the buyer side. And it's caused a big issue within the realtor world, because now realtors have to disclose when they're with a buyer how much you're actually going to get paid on each individual deal. So there's potentially a lot of ramifications on that. Now, transparency is always a good thing, but I think that the DOJ kind of got it wrong, because they painted this picture as if, buyers are unaware of this cost, and the cost really isn't to them. But I guess DOJ's point is the cost is to the transaction. So in their way, they're almost trying to make it where the buyer fee potentially either goes away. I think that's their desire. That's not how it was written. That's not the legislation. But then we can kind of talk about, well, then how are, especially first-time home buyers, going to be able to pay a buyer agent? And how are buyers eventually going to become represented in the deal in this huge transaction if the best and the brightest don't want to represent them, because there's no incentive anymore?
Yeah. So they framed it, which I think was an error in framing. They framed it like kind of a antitrust, right? Like a non-competitive type thing, saying that because NAR requires these agreements where there's a buyer commission, seller commission baked in, it kind of squashes competition. And, consumers don't really know how much they're paying. And frankly, buyers agents should be able to compete on commission, this, that, and the other. But like Justin said, in real life, what I think ends up happening is people end up either having to finance their buyer commission separately, because how many folks, especially first-time home buyers, have the 10 or 15, or depending on your market, maybe $15,000 or $20,000, right? That buyer side commission is. So the suit was just a little bit weird, but it's a big, big story that NAR is getting pressed like this. There are 2 antitrust lawsuits that are out there. This one seems to be going away, but NAR is really getting pressed. And I think the big story, Max, to your point, is like the ground is shifting beneath realtors' feet. So to the extent there's a lot of folks in the audience who are realtors, who are in real estate at all, frankly, you need to understand this, kind of what's going on in terms of the dynamics of buyer commissions, of agent commissions.
Yeah.
So let me maybe give a different perspective from the both of you guys. I think, because I used to be a licensed agent, right? I think the way that first of all, I think we take for granted what we know about real estate and think that everybody knows some of the basic things. Like when they say, you don't pay me, the seller pays me.
Right.
Halfway true. Right? You're being paid because you're paying this price, and this price is baked into the whole situation here. So technically, you're kind of paying me because, hey, you are financing my commission through your whole mortgage.
Right.
Right. So there's this whole side that, hey, I'm here to help you find your house. You don't have to pay me. Come on, it doesn't make sense. No, that's not true. You're getting paid from the seller, but it would be cheaper if you didn't exist.
Right.
Do you think so? Yeah, I don't know. I'm playing devil advocate.
No, yeah, and I think that's probably the position that they took, saying that they're looking out for the buyer. And I think that, there's definitely truth to that, Max. I mean, I think that it'd be hard to say that that's not true, because obviously market prices are definitely have factored in the fact that there is transaction fees associated with a real estate transaction. I think the issue becomes in representation. I mean, personally, I think it's worth it to the buyer to have the type of representation that they need, especially first-time home buyers in a purchase that large. So a percentage of the deal, a few basis points, to me, pales in comparison to them getting into a transaction where they get taken advantage of. And I think that's what's going to end up happening, because what's going to happen if they start squeezing that fee, you're going to see more and more realtors saying, I don't want to represent buyers.
So, but
right?
think about, but let's think about this. The industry has become so normalized and standard that the buyer agent's going to get their money through splitting the fee with the seller, right? Mm-hmm. That's normal now. We wake up every day, we put our left shoe on our left foot, our right shoe on our right foot. But what if it became normal that when you bought a house, you added on 3%, 2%, whatever that percentage was, and the lender tacked it onto your loan in order to pay the buyer's agent? I don't know. I'm just making up an alternative.
But that alternative is the same. That's what's happening now. That's the argument that you just made.
But it's clear.
I'm financing it.
But it's clear.
Yeah. Sure.
It's clear now.
Sure. I think that the answer really is just where it landed, which is disclosing. Right.
So,
and hopefully that the fee doesn't go away, because the problem with that outcome, if you make the lenders kind of have to add the 3%, I mean, it just changes underwriting. It has a really large impact to financial markets and guidelines and bonds out there currently. It'd be too much of an impact.
I agree with you.
For the lenders to be able to move to that quickly.
So now let's think about if the push if that push of this DOJ argument and this whole thing came from a agency that wanted to push this down the throat of the NRA, National Association of Realtors, so that you can get rid of the fee, so you no longer need a buyer side agent. Because when I was an agent back in 2004, 5, 6, 7, 8, that 83% of home buyers started their shopping online. So what's the point of having a buyer's agent?
Well, this is the point that I made. Well, yeah, I mean, this is the point that I brought up when we first flagged the issue during office hours. Is it seemed like an odd suit the way it was framed, and like what we said to the audience was, you got to always ask yourself, like, whose interests are being served by a big lawsuit like this, right? So if you look at the iBuyers, for example, Zillow, Zillow, Open Door.
That's a strange cough you just had.
Hey, man, listen, these guys, only nerds like me will have done this, but if you go and actually read their financials, they're very clear, explicit to you what their biggest expense is, and it's the buyer's agent, right? So the DOJ, by the way, is the Department of Justice. Thank you for bringing that up, Nigel. The Department of Justice is who brought this suit. But if you go and read these big iBuyers, they are running a massive operation, and they're trying to shave costs wherever they can so they can protect margin. I'm not going to say that there's a big conspiracy. I'm not prepared to go there just yet. I am saying, okay, Justin is. I am saying that it is peculiar at best that these lawsuits have timed when they were, don't really seem to serve the consumer all that much, because because the consumer now has to either come out of pocket 10, 20, 30 grand, which they probably don't have, or finance it separately, all in the name of competition and giving their buyer's agent the ability to compete on price. When we also know that these multi-billion-dollar iBuyers have said that their biggest cost is the buyer agent, and they are trying to find ways to eliminate that cost.
So question,
it just seems peculiar.
So Vince, check this out. You shopping for a new house. I don't know what houses cost where you are, but they're more than where I am, right? Would you like to save 3% by doing your shopping on your own?
Bro, 3% up here is, that's a lot of money. That's
I just asked you a question. Would you want to save 3%? All right.
Yeah.
So
but I don't think you do, though.
Here's the issue.
It's an argument you can make, though, now.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it is an argument, right? But here's the issue. A lot of that depends on where you are, what's going on in that metro. A lot of it depends on your buying power, your strength, the strength of your offer. If you're running around here able to put 20% down, maybe you don't need a realtor. Maybe, if you're 20% down or more, maybe. In a highly competitive market like it is right now during the pandemic, with COVID going on and 80 showings of property and 14 offers in on a property in 2 and 3 days, you're not winning that if you don't have a realtor that's fighting for you.
So
you're just not.
So so I'm just, keep in mind, I'm just playing the devil advocate side of this.
I'm sorry, and you're not winning that through some sort of business where everybody's on salary, or you got to call some conference desk to get an offer in. So you're not going to get.
So Justin, let's think about the big idea, though. I mean, we got to think bigger than what's happening. We've normalized everything in real estate now. So imagine the house, the beautiful house you own right now. You want to sell it. You don't want to pay 6% because in your market, that's probably like $60,000. Okay.
Yeah.
Legit. So you list it on Zillow. You have a virtual open house. I don't care whatever virtual house, whatever the logistics of it, and you sell it to somebody else for, like, somebody could submit offers and you can simply click I accept, and all these people are pre-approved through Zillow financing that they guarantee that this person will qualify.
And people have tried that. Yeah, people have tried that. I mean, Zone. If you look at Zone Realty, that was their whole premise. They tried it. They tried to create a marketplace, fully transparent deals. Offers that were made had to be fully transparent, and you could make your offers all online in the marketplace. They tried it. And I just think that maybe we'll get there in the future. I used to say, at some point we'll get to the point where you can buy, homes like loaves of bread. I just don't think that we're there yet because of just the complexity of the deal and the emotions involved in the deal, that you really need a steward. You really need a steward in a transaction that large when you're dealing with retail buyers. Investors,
I agree with you.
Different story.
I agree with you, but what does it cost?
Yeah.
What does it cost?
I think that
at what cost? I mean,
now,
at what cost? I say.
Okay. To that point right there, that's where I think you have an argument for it. And I think that probably, to your point, we're a ways away from that. We will get to a place where it's more common. I don't think you'll ever get to where that's what everybody does or even have, but maybe you'll get to a place where 25, 30% of transactions happen this way. But to that specific point, Max, like, I have always said, I do think that buyer's agents are overpaid. Please don't shoot me if there are buyer's agents in the audience. I'm not like disparaging people for the sake of disparaging. I'm simply saying that if you break down the home purchase,
it depends on the deal, bro.
Go ahead.
It depends on
the
deal.
Actually, you know what? No, it does. It does. My point is just, I think that probably there are agents who are overpaid, right? And there is an argument, whether you believe it or not, there is an argument for saying, okay, let's tease this out. Let's unbuckle all this stuff that's been kind of in the murk. Nobody really knows who's getting paid and how much, and how did they come to 6%? And is that even Steven? And did they do half the work, or did the listing agent do 80% of the work and the buyer's agent just took them on a few tours, right? Like, so there is an argument to be made for decoupling it because it would give more transparency and maybe allow the buyer agent to compete on price. I just don't, again, the cynical part of me just says, I don't think that's where this came from in real life. In real life, I don't think that was, the motivation for this lawsuit. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I would love to see who brought the lawsuit up and why this was why this was.
Or the snitch down in Texas that got the DOJ
Yeah.
on their
Somebody
on
got
their
pissed
tail.
off high up. Somebody got pissed off and pushed.
Two snitches,
or
one in Texas and
paid
one in
off.
Minnesota. Yeah.
or paid off.
And it's
Got it.
really, y'all should go Google it. Like, I don't want to spend a ton of time on it, but y'all should really go and Google these stories. There are 2 antitrust suits against the National Association of Realtors right now. And go and look at how they got started. How the guy that supposedly was at the center of it, who was harmed, who wasn't really harmed,
Was
is
not
the
harmed.
person that they decided to hang these cases on.
And here's the crazy
It's
stuff.
silly.
Here's the thing. So I started out in this business. I think if you start out in this business as a agent, you get pushed to buyer's side very quickly. Nobody wants to do buyer's agent. It's like taking the trash out, because a lot of times, well, at least in the market, because I'm gonna give you my personal experience. It's when I was a buyer's agent, I would drive somebody around every weekend, going around trying to find them a house, only for them not to buy anything, right? And that's so there's a lot of false shots that do lead to you not getting anything. You don't get compensated if a house is not done. So I think I don't know.
I mean, I can tell you this. I completely and utterly disagree with the idea that realtors are overpaid. And it's not just because my wife's a realtor. That might have a little bit to do with it.
Yeah, that's
but not all of it. So I just want to say that for the record on YouTube and on Facebook.
Yeah.
But really, I believe it. And I'm going to tell you why. Now, here's the thing. Are there cases where agents get overpaid? Yeah. Are there cases where you go to work and there's people asleep at their desk? Yeah. So every industry has people who are overpaid because they're not productive. They don't really work, right? And that's and I'm just going to say that's the case with Redfin. I don't know why anyone would ever list their home with Redfin. Because Redfin agents, by and large, don't do anything.
There goes that sponsor.
And yeah, I was about to say they're the mid-roll sponsor, bro. Not just
Well, they go that
wait a
money.
minute.
hold on, wait. Coming down from the producer's
We're not
room.
going to shy away from the truth, y'all. We're not shying away from the
right.
truth. But yeah, typically those homes sit longer on the market, at least in my market, because those listing agents don't have an incentive. They're all salary. And I could tell you, my wife works her butt off mostly as a listing agent. Now, in a market where it's a seller's market, the listing agents don't have to work as hard.
So it goes like
If
this.
it's a buyer's right. If it's a buyer's market, buyer's agents don't have to work as hard. Listing agents have to work harder.
Yeah.
So it really is market dependent what's going on as to who has to potentially work harder in a deal, and also what's going on in that locale, right? Because the dynamics here in Northern Virginia are different than the dynamics, say, in Northern Jersey. But by and large, I would say good realtors, right? Because there's people who suck in every job. They're well worth it. And to your point about buyer's agents, buyer agent can spend weeks and weeks and end up spending 100, 200 hours with a buyer
Yeah.
showing them properties. And when you break it down on a per hour basis, they didn't make that much money.
I
Especially
totally
after
agree.
they split with their broker.
Yeah. And let me qualify my statement because Ebony felt some kind of way and she chimed in. Ebony, I'm not talking about you, sis. Right. And so Justin made the qualifier that I should have made up front. Good agents, none of what I'm saying applies. Right. I'm talking about order takers. And what I think is going to happen, and I'm on record, there's stuff I've written on Medium 3, 4, 5 years ago about this. I think that the market is going to bifurcate and you're going to have good agents like Lindsay, like Ebony, probably, right? Folks who work really, really hard, who are going to do well and frankly do better. You know what I'm saying? Because they're going to understand how to provide value all the way around the transaction. And then you're going to have the rest of folks who are going to become order takers and their commissions are going to get compressed because a lot of them do just throw something up in the MLS and call it a day.
But commissions are standardized.
And that's my point. That's why. So when you hear me make a comment like they're overpaid, I'm talking about the folks who are drafting off of the good realtors. They're drafting off of Lindsay and Ebony. Right? I'm trying to win back some points here. I hope it's working.
Yeah, yep.
So you say
Right.
so. I want to get off this topic in a second, but this is the last thing. So will agents have to start competing with their commission size or their value adds or both?
Mostly,
I think it's both.
Well, yeah, I think it's both. But they're going to have to lead with value in order to justify the price.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, cool.
And where I think, and because it's deal by deal and transaction specific, like here's the deal. My wife worked with some friends of ours for weeks on a deal. They ended up buying a house off market. There's no transaction. And they asked her, what should we do? She said, you need to buy that off market property. That's what you need to do. I don't care about my commission. That's what you need to do.
Well,
so, I mean, if you're serving people, right, and you've got a servant mentality, she's like, I'm not worried about that. She's got business coming. Right. And so that's how she's showing value, because she's going to be referred to somebody else and they're going to say, no, that realtor right there, you don't try to negotiate with them because that person's the best. So I think that if people want the best representation in a deal, which I believe that a lot of people will, there are going to be some who are price conscious, but most people I think are going to want that.
100%. And last thing I'll say on this is we actually went even further than that. On my house, I bought it at an auction just because, the thought of paying retail just made me want to throw up.
You gotta tell that story. That story made me cry.
That story is crazy, and I will tell it one day. But the part of it that I don't talk that much about is we did hire a realtor, and she took us around forever. And in my town, things were going for way over ask, $50,000, $80,000, $100,000 over ask. And so I ended up buying the house at auction. And even though I found the house myself, bid on it myself, did not use her at all for this house, I still paid her
For her time.
separately for her time. Because what I told her, I said, I don't believe in people working for free. Right. And so I think that there are a lot of folks out there like that who are willing to pay for valuable service. And so you're going to see realtors split into folks like Lindsay, like my realtor, who did not find my house and still got a check from me.
Mm-hmm. I like it. So before we move on to our next subject, which is really going to talk about, we're going to spend 5 minutes. I think we're going to go over today, obviously, but we're going to spend 5 minutes talking about any on the ground tactics that you guys have picked up on this week, or something that you noticed that you said, hey, look, I should probably bring this up. So if we can spend 5 minutes on some real actionable items for investors out here today that you may have picked up like that.
Well, I mean, we can kind of talk about one of the things that we started doing in our REI Real group, which is called Real Estate Marketing Launchpad, Real Estate Marketing Mastery Launchpad. Did I say that right, Vince?
Yeah, but we're probably gonna get rid of mastery. It's too many words. Go ahead.
Okay.
Who approved this?
Right. Yeah.
But we talked about, our developers actually go live every Tuesday. They went live today, right? No, tomorrow. Every Wednesday they go
Wednesday,
live.
yeah.
Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, every Wednesday. So they're actually going to go live tomorrow, and they give stats on how many, roughly on average, SMS texts should you send out before you expect a response. How many, if you're doing ringless voicemail, how many RVMs you should send and expect a response? How many of these on average translate to deals? So I think one of the big things that we've been able to report on recently is looking at data and saying, this is what is happening that is really successful, and then giving that information to people who are users. Even if you're in our community, you don't have to be an REI Real user to be in our community, but you could still, that information that you're getting is still actionable. Because these are probably the same across all platforms. So we've been really excited about that. So that's tactical data. We don't have it with us right now, but I mean, you could join tomorrow when our developers go live inside of our Facebook group and get that data and those tactics and know exactly how many SMSs I should send, how many calls I should be making, how many RVMs, if you're doing RVM, how many RVMs I should be sending.
Got it. Anything from you, Vince? Tactical that you talk to a lot of our customers over at REI Real.
Yeah, I try to stay, finger on the pulse. I did a session, a little short webby with some folks today. But I think that's probably the best one. Justin summed it up perfectly, is understanding those ratios. Like, I think people think that this business is more magical than it is, and it's not. It's more mechanical than it is magical. If you put in a certain amount of dollars, you get a certain number of dollars out. It's just kind of right. As long as you got the right tools and you say essentially the right stuff, you put a certain number of dollars in, you get a certain number of dollars out. And we have been showing people that tactically. And I think Justin's example is a great one.
Yeah, that's pretty dope.
Yeah,
So
and even in one deal away, just not too long ago, you tagged me and Vince on a post where someone was asking about KPIs for SMS text, and I mean that literally was like what, an hour or two ago, right?
yep, exactly.
And
I was going to talk about that.
right, and so like that's to me that's the takeaway is really know your numbers, and we're doing everything to get those numbers into your hands that you need to know in order to say, if I do put this much money in, I can expect this much money out, based on the law of averages and what I know my KPIs to be. And then not only that, I can go back and refine and get my KPIs even dial it in even tighter.
Got it. Yeah, that's pretty dope. Even so my one deal away people who are a part of my training course, we do a weekly call every Thursday. And last week I said, yo, I'm not doing much Tuesday. Why don't y'all come kick it at the office? So people flew in from Dallas and Jersey and other places, Virginia. We came in, we sat, and I sat with them all day, and I gave them some very small things that would change their business. Not no big crazy stuff on this is the best text message, this is the best. We spent all day going through their county records and showing them how you've been letting deals go over your head because you never took the time to understand the fundamentals of where your records come from. And if we had people lock up appointments simply just by understanding, yo, here goes XYZ, here goes this. So anyways, man, our next session is going to be from Justin. Justin is actually going to be speaking about launching big ideas. They call him the big idea guy because he's good at doing that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put him on the screen, number one, and he's going to be able to talk to you guys about anything. Is there anything you want to add, Vince, before we just let him get the floor for a second?
I'm about to go get some popcorn. Now we're good. Let's go.
Cool. It's all yours.
All right. So hopefully everybody can see that. Type in the chat. Make sure that you can see my presentation here. If you can't see it, let us know. And I'm just going to kind of go through it. It's 7:45, and we've got roughly 15 minutes. So, and I've got about 12 or 13 slides. So that's a slide. And I want to get this done in 10 minutes so we can discuss it. So the big idea. All right. And I just want to start with my number one rule is you don't have to be a coder. You just need to be resourceful. And what do I mean by that? So if you want to learn the code, someone made the comment last week that, hey, if I want to learn the code, where should I go? And a lot of folks have an interest now. What does it take to be a coder? And I'm not saying that you can. If you want to go down that journey, go ahead. And I'm also going to tell you like some resources where you could go if you want to do that. But if you want to build something great and you don't want to be a coder, you don't have to be. You just need to partner with the right people. I'm going to show you how and talk about how you can pick the right people to partner with. So number one rule, you don't have to be a coder. You just need to be resourceful. So what are my golden rules? If you're going to build an idea, number one, and I always say this every week, Vince and I inside of office hours and here on this show, Launchpad, you've heard me say it. My number one rule is always be creative. So generate great ideas, and I'm going to give you a resource for that as well. And secondly, idea, don't build the wrong thing. And one of the reasons I'm so passionate about this, entrepreneurs who have put their life savings into trying to build an app and trying to, launch their idea only to lose it all. And it wasn't the fact that the idea was bad. It was they just didn't have the tools, the resources to actually execute and get this thing off the ground and be successful. So I want to give you a roadmap on how to do that. And third is just be humble. Like, don't assume your idea is going to be viral. A lot of folks think that, I've got this fantastic idea. Nobody else has this idea. It probably is a great idea. There might be some other people working on it, right? And you'll hear the term blitz scaling or blitz marketing, like meaning you got to beat people to market because there's other folks who potentially may be working on this novel idea. And also, you just need to be able to know your customer and learn how to sell your idea, because it's a great idea to you and you think it's the greatest thing and solves all your problems. It doesn't necessarily mean it solves the problem for a lot of people. And that's what you need to do in order to make money if you're going to sell something. And number 4, this should be number 1. Don't hire your cousin who's a developer. All right. And what that means now, that doesn't mean that your cousin may, now, if I'm your cousin, that's a different story, right? But if your cousin just says, hey, I'm a developer, I'm just saying, look, use a little bit of discernment, make sure that that they really have the resume, they've built applications or software on the scale of what you're envisioning before. And I want to talk about this term developer and give you all a word that actually I think is better when you start to have your conversations if you're going to start to build something. Number 5 is the last of my golden rules: design, design, design. And what that means is build something beautiful. You want to think about it up front. You want to get it down on paper. And I'm going to show you how you even can build like easy prototypes that almost anybody can do to get your idea, see it live. And it's not real, but it gives you an idea of what it's going to look like when it's done. So just to sum that all up, an app. And I'm going to train our audience not to think in terms of an app, but to think in terms of systems. All right. So what do I mean by architect versus developer? Okay. So what is a developer? A developer is simply a coder. I know code, but that does not mean that I know how to build a system from beginning to end. That does not mean that when I can build and think about the experience that a user has when they log onto my platform. That does not mean that I think in a business context about how to not just build it, but to also think how this is going to improve the life and the business of a user. Like when I sat down, and Vince and I and Max, when we sat down and started designing REI Rail, it just wasn't coding. It wasn't bits and bytes. There's a psychology to all of this. We thought about how beautiful we wanted it to be. We thought about what information you should have first. We thought about what each click should be, what your flow through the application should be in order to get you to the answer faster. And these things matter. And a coder's not going to give you that. A coder is just going to just build whatever you tell them to build and not ask any questions. And that's not what you want, especially if you've never built a system before. An architect, on the other hand, thinks about that there's a lot of complexity behind that, and that usually you'll see an app on a phone, and you can also log into it online, on your desktop. You can find it on an Android. You can find it on an iOS app as well. So it's not just that one app. There's a whole lot more to it. There's a system. There's a bunch of things coming together. Now I look at it like this, like, and when you look at Justin and you see his face, like that's in a way that's sort of an app. But when you think about what's the system of Justin, I've got arms, I've got legs, I've got feet, I've got a heart. And you don't see all that stuff. You don't see the underlying complexity that's going on. My lungs, oxygen, just the ridiculous complexity and genius that is the human body and the human system. So not to say that your system is going to be so complex that you need a grand architect, like, to build it. That's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm really just trying to say is just go a little bit, deeper in your thinking around what an app is and what it takes to get it off the ground, so that you are, basically, counting the cost of the battle before you enter into it. And if you have an issue with trying to figure that out, shoot us a note. I will help you. All right. So it's a simple process. Number 1, solve a big problem. That's how you're going to build something that's meaningful, that people care about, that potentially could change your life. You got to solve other people's problems, right? And so another way to think about this is, we say it in a marketing context all the time. I always say to entrepreneurs, you're not Batman and you're not even Robin, you're Alfred. And in this case, when you're building a system, you really are Alfred, right? You're the one who's creating the tools that make Batman Batman. So always think in that context. Number 2, do it before you build it. And this is key. This is huge. When we were building REI Rail, before there was ever a line of code, we did the business by hand. We actually did everything by hand. We had customers. We were a boutique lead generation firm that took on some of the largest wholesalers in the game, and we drove leads to them using all the stuff that you see inside of RAI Rail, but we did it manually. So we knew what would work. We knew the things that made people successful. And we built the system and designed the system based on what we were doing manually. So there's always a way to prove your concept out before you build and do a stitch or a line of code. Number 3 is research, research, research. So what does that mean when I say research? That means know your audience, know your competition, know the technologies that you're going to use as well. You don't have to be a pro at it. You just have to know enough to be able to hire well. Number 4, you want to prototype. So you want to get an idea of what this thing looks like before you spend too much money building something that doesn't work. You want to be able to, and with the cool thing about prototypes is, let me make sure everybody can still hear me. Just let me know in the chat. So hopefully you all can see me okay. We're getting some reports that, okay, Max says I'm good. All right, I'm gonna make sure things weren't freezing on you guys. But prototyping is key, because when you prototype, you can send it out to people and say, hey, this is my idea. And you can even make a prototype look like it works. It can have like fake data in there. You can make it look like it does all the stuff that you want to build out. But it's just kind of like screens, if you will. And you just get an idea of what the experience is like. You can pass that along. I've seen people get funded just on a prototype. I mean, if you've got a fantastic idea and you've got a nice prototype, you can walk to a venture capitalist or raise money on a prototype alone. So sometimes you don't even need to build it. But if you do want to build it, that's number 5, which is now you're going to build it. If you want to develop it, or you want to learn to develop it yourself, I'll give you some resources for how to get started. And you can also outsource it and to get developers. And I'm also going to show you great places where to get developers and architects. All right. And then number 6 is you're just going to test and refine. So as you build it, you're going to get feedback. And we're doing this. I mean, like REI Rail is constantly in the test and refine phase. Users tell us, man, we wish it would do this. Well, we're going to go back. We get that feedback. We're going to build that new feature into it. We're going to test it. We're going to throw it back out there. We're going to get feedback, whether you like it or not. So we're constantly in this stage of refinement. The job is never done. So when powerful marketing people, CEOs, you name it. This book was actually written in the 60s, and it is not a long read. It is a very short book. It's not expensive on Amazon. You can just go there and Google it, or go into Amazon and search for it. A Technique for Producing Ideas by James Webb Young. And what this book basically talks about is an idea essentially is bringing and bridging an old concept with a new concept, bringing 2 ideas that people didn't think to bridge together in a way that is unique. So if you think about great ideas, typically it's I'm borrowing something and I'm sort of merging it with this other thing that people would never have expected, that these 2 things go together, right? And so one of the first ideas that people had in real estate, just to kind of give you as an example, is driving for dollars. In the very, very ongoing, in the beginning, there weren't any driving for dollars app. Now there's a ton of them, right? Somebody had to come up with the first. I say that we came up with the first. Dave over at DealMachine, he may disagree, but I know for a fact, and if Dave, if you're watching, we were first. But yeah, so we built a Driving for Dollars app in Who's It back in 2013. And the idea at that time was, people needed, I saw somebody who is a friend of mine writing down, and she actually worked for a big developer, wholesaler in my market in Northern Virginia. He had a team of about 10 people. Back then you called them bird dogs. We don't call them that anymore. But back then they were called bird dogs. That's how long ago this was. And so he would send out his quote unquote bird dogs, and they would go out and knock on doors. That's how they generated leads. And they took a yellow piece of paper and they would just write down addresses, and they'd come back and they would put all those addresses into a spreadsheet. And they spent hours upon hours doing this. And I sat there and I thought, that makes no sense that you're doing that. How is there not an app that exists to take care of that problem? And so that was one of the very first things that we built. So here I was taking this concept of, at the time, right now it seems cliche because we see it all over the place, but at one point it was new. No one thought to mix driving with a database while I'm driving, right? So you had something that exists already, this idea of a database and being able to collect information, but now merging it in a new way, which is now driving, right? And then you think, okay, within that context, how do I make it easy for people? Oh, well, what if I have a map that they can see just like they have in their normal map apps? So what if it's a map-based thing, right? Or how about I give them the ability to actually pull up the the county record right there while they're there in front of the door. So you start to bridge in these new concepts, but it started with one big idea, and that's giving people the ability to collect leads while they drive in the click of a button, right? And so when you think about it, and you should be able to express your idea in really one sentence. If I ask you what's your big idea and you spend 10 minutes trying to explain it to me, it's not a good idea because it takes too long. There's not one big idea that someone you can express it and everyone just gets it and they're like, I got it. So when you're thinking about ideas, think about how you can say it quickly, right? And how you're able to sort of say, what I'm doing is I'm bridging this, this concept meets this concept, old meets new, okay? Or even restaurants do this. One of my favorite restaurants, the reason that they were unique was because they were Indo-Parisian, right? And so restaurants do this all the time. They were mixing Indian cuisine with French dishes. And they came up with all these unique dishes that took Indian cooking concepts with French chef concepts. And they even named the dishes that sounded, they created this whole language around it. So that's an idea. That's just one idea. And you get it immediately. All right. So if you do want to learn how to code, all right, the language that you want to learn, and I suggest that everyone should start with, is JavaScript. And why? Because 70% of all developers out here know JavaScript. And 85% of all the apps developed recently, I saw this reported somewhere, that who receive VC money, they use JavaScript for a significant portion of the product that they're building. Another reason it's good for you, even if you say, I don't care, I don't want to be a developer, but I do have an interest, I just kind of want to know what it's about, learn JavaScript, even if it's just at a cursory level, because it at least will give you an idea of whether or not somebody knows what they're talking about. You'll be able to poke holes and say, that doesn't make sense, I'm not hiring that person. All right. And also Python's good too, but JavaScript is the #1 language to learn right now. If you're going to build a prototype, I'm going to give you some tools. InVision app, that's what we use. And so right now we're working on a new feature inside of RARL that we're really excited about. It was all mocked out inside of InVision. And what we were able to do is send that out to, we have a customer focus group, and we send that out to our customer focus group and say, hey guys, pop around inside this prototype, play around with it. It gives you an idea of how the app is going to work, and let us know what you think. Give us your feedback. And then we were able to take their feedback before we actually built anything, and made sure that their feedback was included in what will eventually be the feature that we release here in the next coming weeks. So InVision is one thing. Now that's, sometimes if you don't have the budget for that, I forget exactly how expensive it is. It's not terribly expensive, but there is a cost involved. The other thing is a napkin, and you can get that from your kitchen. The point is, write it down, draw it out. I think when we did our first system back in 2013, I think we used PowerPoint. You can use anything. So whatever you can draw on, that's what you should use. All right. But the point is, capture your ideas, write them down, draw pictures. Don't care how ugly they are, as long as somebody gets what you're trying to say. That's all that matters. That's what language means. The other person on the other side understands what I'm trying to say. Another tool is Balsamiq, and there's a lot of free versions of Balsamiq. It's a little bit harder to learn, a little bit more technical, but if you are more technically minded, check it out. Go to balsamic.com and play around with it. Best websites to learn code. If you do want to go in and you want to learn how to code, go to egghead.io. They've got fantastic courses, and you can kind of start from the very beginning or already or go all the way to the most advanced concepts if you want. Front End Masters, that's what we use here at for REI Rail. All of our developers have accounts to Front End Masters. You can learn. The beautiful thing, what I love about both of the Egghead and Front End Masters is if you're building something, even if you never take a course, you can learn the jargon just by looking at the topics of the course titles. So when you walk into a conversation, you can be like, yeah, I heard of that. I know what that is. Yeah. So, I mean, and sounding like you know means a lot when you're entering in certain conversations, especially if you're asking people to invest. So you don't need to know it deeply, but you at least need to know what it is. And you can do that just by logging in and looking at the names of the courses. So go to these websites. Don't get a subscription. I mean, well, I think you should if you really want to, but just even look at what's out there. Just learn names, ask questions. And then Udemy or Udemy. And so Udemy probably is the cheapest, where you can buy one specific course for like $10, and you'll learn everything you need to know for $10. All right, so an awesome book to start learning JavaScript if that's what you want to do. You want to be technical, is Speaking JavaScript. That's what I usually tell people when they're very first, starting to learn. I think but there's a million books out there. So, but this is just one book that I've seen work where people, it kind of can grasp it fairly easily. So again, that's Speaking JavaScript. All right. Best websites for outsourcing developers. And I should have really put AKA architects. TopTal.com, and that's short for Top Talent. Really, really awesome site for finding developers in all parts of the world who will work for, if you can't afford a US based developer, you can find someone who is just as brilliant, who lives in another economy where the dollar is stronger. And since we're all entrepreneurs, sometimes it makes sense, especially now in a post-pandemic and pandemic environment, to find resources where your dollar is stronger. Okay, so you can find really, really talented developers all over the world on TopTal. Now, it is more expensive than the other three, or the other two that I'm recommending. So depending on what your budget is, even if you wanted to hire someone just as an advisor, just to say, hey, help me with my design, or help me with what I need to be thinking about to make sure that I'm successful. You could hire someone and say, I just want to give you X amount of dollars for 3 or 4 hours of consultation. TopTal is a great place for that. Upwork is where you can find a lot of developers for if you need a WordPress site. If you just need I need you to do an integration between my Podio and my Zapier. Or if you need a developer to, basically do any type of, from really large product or project, or to something even really small. I just need 2 hours. I just need you to get this up and running for me. I'm trying to get my Google Sheets to talk to, to REI Rail or whatever product that you're using. You can find those folks on Upwork for relatively cheap. So Upwork is a great resource. And then I give Fiverr the thumbs down when it comes to developers. I give it the big thumbs down. I would highly recommend that you do not use Fiverr for finding developers. But that doesn't mean that there aren't some. You could get lucky. But typically I would use Fiverr for, the graphics, VAs, that type of thing. Video editing. You're going to find great resources on Fiverr for that. But the best developers, the best and the brightest, the people who are really talented, typically they're not going to go to Fiverr. Sorry, y'all. I think okay, there we go. So if you don't want to get technical, Justin, I don't want to learn JavaScript. I don't want to learn how to spell JavaScript. Um, I don't want to know none of that. And I understand that. And you don't have to, because some of the most successful entrepreneurs that I've seen who have built some of the most beautiful SaaS products don't have a technical bone in their body. But what they have is they know enough to be dangerous. They know how to hire well. And so that's what I want to sort of get across is you don't have to be technical. You just need, but you are going to need to hire people. You are going to need to be able to express your idea, through even if it's writing it on a napkin, express it well. And you're going to have a great idea that gets excited, that gets people excited to work on it. So the real components are have a great idea, vet that idea. And so I want to give you the tools to ask the right questions up front. Right? How do you know that you're hiring the right developer? How do you know that you're asking the right questions up front for the product that you're building? So, think about what will it look like when this thing goes live and people are on it? How am I going to support it? Think about how you're going to grow it. And you hear the term scalability, and all that means is, people are often amazed that, for instance, one of the things that we wanted to be able to do in REI Rail, and guys, this isn't like shameless plug. This is just what I know. So I'm going to talk about the product that I built. So one of the things that we built and that we wanted in REI is like, there's no limit to how much you can upload. And if you upload 1 million records or 10,000 records, the app doesn't change. The speed doesn't change. And that's one of the things that a lot of people tell us, like, I can't believe I just uploaded this many records and the app is still snappy. That was something that we wanted from the very beginning. We knew that. So we built that in, we designed it in from the very beginning. So those things that set your app apart from other apps, if you know that you want to 10x another version of an app, think about, and that I want to do this app, but I need to 10x it, right? And I need to 10x this area because I've done my research and I know that this is where all their customers are complaining. So I'm going to sort of come in on this slant and really 10x that thing that they're all complaining about. Right. And lastly, pick technologies that are well known. So if you're using your cousin to develop it and you're not asking questions, your cousin might use some technology from 1973. And the next thing you know, you can't find anybody to support it, or you got to pay an arm and a leg to get somebody to come back and redo the whole thing. So I've seen that happen, and I've seen businesses, basically ruined. They had a great idea. They got users. It went into, live and people loved it. And then the minute that they got over 1,000 users, everything crashed. Somebody else came in, stole all their customers. So you don't want that to happen. If you're picking technologies, even if it's not built well, right? Because you kind of had to pay your cousin because you didn't have the bread to pay somebody else. Well, make sure your cousin's using technologies that other developers know. So when you get to the point that you are making money and you can hire somebody to come back and fix it, that at least you're using technologies that they know, that they can use. So that's a really important thing. All right. So if you want to get deeply technical, I'm not talking about any of this stuff right now, but you could shoot me a note. And on my YouTube channel, which is, Justin Winters, The Big Idea, I'm going to talk about some of this stuff where we'll have a technical track where if you want to learn about frameworks and developer environments and databases and cloud and AWS and architecture and how the web really works, right? APIs, big data, how data passes from how it gets from your phone to through the application into a database and how it gets over to some other place. Like I can teach you how all that stuff works and make it easy to understand. Not that you have to be a technical person to understand it. I want to be able to describe it to you in business terms because you're all CEOs, you're all entrepreneurs, and you all are going to build businesses that are going to rely on technology. So moving forward, you're going to have to understand it to a certain degree so that you're not left behind, especially if you're building a business. So if you don't know it, partner with someone who does. And if you don't have a partner, then, come on over to the Big Idea channel, and we're going to teach you all that stuff. All right. So again, golden rules for building your big idea: be creative, vet your idea, don't build the wrong thing, Don't assume your idea is just going to light the world on fire. You've actually got to sometimes light that match yourself. So you got to learn marketing. You got to learn all those techniques. We're going to talk about that stuff too. Don't hire your cousin who's a developer unless your cousin is me. And design. Think how to prototype. So again, architects over developers, guys. Systems over apps. You're not building an app. You're building a business. All right. So for the next time, these are some of the things that I want to talk about with you all, which is customer support, because a lot of folks don't think about that. They get into these businesses and they don't really think how they're going to support it. I want to talk to you about how to monetize your app. So we can talk about how do you set up Stripe? How do you do all these things? How do you set up subscription plans? How do I create a pricing model that leads to success and doesn't lead to you drowning in your business? Because a lot of times people don't think about the cost of running the business versus the actual income and profit that the business or that the company makes. All right. Unless you want to be what's called a loss leader, but then you're going to need deep pockets in order to do that. How to research your competition. That is key. If you guys, man, these numbers are really weird on the slide. I'm sorry because I did this late. But researching your competition, I'm going to give you all the tools on how to figure out what ads they're running. If they're running ads on Facebook, I'll show you how to figure that out. If they're running ads on Google, I'll show you how to figure that out. If they're running native ads on other platforms like Taboola, I can show you how to figure that stuff out. So you can reverse engineer what your competition is doing and come at it at an angle that nobody else, and hit the competition in a way that they don't expect. All right. And also, how do you guarantee subscribers? What are some techniques out there to guarantee subscribers, whether you're partnering with influencers or you're paying for traffic? These are things that you as an entrepreneur, even if you're, thinking just the app, you need to think about these things. How you position is key. So product market fit, positioning your app so that it looks different. One of the things that we did early on, and I'll let you in on the secret, and it's not really a secret. I mean, we have a patent on this, but it was a marketing thing for us just as much as it was a thing that we wanted to offer in the app, because we do believe it truly is an answer to the way things are done. Our big idea with REI Rail in the very beginning was we had RVM out there. The problem that we were solving was you didn't know who was on the other end of the phone. So many people would flood RVM, and if you've ever run an RVM campaign, you can send out a bunch of RVMs. Your phone's ringing off the hook. And so when that person would call in your VA and the person would pick up the phone, the very first thing that you would say to that person is, hi, this is so-and-so from, ibuyhouses.com, and who's calling? And then the person who on the other end would say, what do you mean? You should know who I am because you called me, right? That was the big problem that we saw when we were doing it manually, when we were doing it by hand. Our customers had no idea who was on the other end of the line. Their conversion rates tanked because it sounded like a scam. So our big idea was, no, we're going to show you who is, we're going to tell you before the phone even rings who's about to call. And not only that, we're going to tell you what campaign they're in. We're going to tell you who their cousins are. We're going to tell you what high school they went to. So that way, when before your phone rings, you will have a 360 psychological, imprint or footprint of who this person is, so that you can have a great conversation. And the way I like to say it is, most of us invest in our backyards. So chances are I may know you. Like if you're from Willingboro, New Jersey, and I'm investing in Willingboro, and you pop up on my when we called it deep trace, you pop up on my deep trace, I probably know your cousin. I probably know your brother. You may have gone to high school with me. There's something on there that I'm going to be able to talk to and build rapport with you. So knowing who that person is, that was our big idea. That's what positioned us. That's what made us different, because no other RVM out there did that. And we just kept saying, it doesn't make sense for you to spend tons of money, right, on a campaign, and then all the phone calls, you're not able to book deals because you sound like a creep. That was the big idea. That's how we started, right? And so that's just an idea of like how you can see what's happening when you actually try to put your ideas into play and actually turn it into something great. And now our AIRLs become so much more than just that first thing that we offered, from, the new landing pages that we're about to offer, to texting, to all the things that it does. So we'll get into all that. And then also educating your audience, things like this, live streaming. That's a big part of the business. Teaching your audience how to grow their businesses and use the products that you build and the services that you're selling. And analytics and marketing, we'll get into that too. So I think that is my last slide, everybody. Here we go. So again, number one rule, you don't have to be a coder. You just have to be resourceful. I've given you some resources that you can use if you want to go down that technical path, but I've also given you some resources if you don't. All right, because you don't have to be a developer in order to make this thing happen. So I hope this was useful for you all. I hope I helped to dispel, at least kind of give you, a launch pad for how to get your ideas off the ground. There's so much more that we can go into, and that's what we're going to be continually giving you content on how to do that. We're going to be giving you content on my channel here on the Launchpad on how to do these things. So I hope this was helpful. And if you have any questions, reach out to me. I'll even make this presentation available to everyone if they want that. And with that, I am done. You can bring me back into the main live stream.
Bring you back into the fold.
Yeah.
So, that was a lot. I ain't even gonna lie. I hope y'all were ready for that. Vince, why you look so confused, Vince?
I'm waiting for him to get back to his camera. I'm still looking at his slides. Oh, there we go. All right, cool.
Yeah, sorry, buddy.
All right, cool. Yeah.
No, that was dope, man. I really like that.
Yeah, I was a little nervous. I was like, I don't want this about it being overwhelming. And again, I don't want it to be overwhelming because that's why I kept trying to say, hey, everybody, you don't need to be technical, but I don't want to act like there isn't more involved because I've seen so many people who have, taken $40,000, $100,000 out of their retirement and lost it because they started wrong. So you don't have to digest all this now. I'm going to give you, this is recorded. So you can go back and watch it, or we're going to give you the presentation. You can go down and download it. Just know that when you're getting ready to start a venture, just know the right questions to ask. And if you don't, you can always just reach out to us. We'll help you. We'll help you think about it and walk you through it.
Absolutely. No, that was good. That's how you launch a big idea. That's how you start to move those ideas from your brain into start having implementation. And but like you said, you don't have to memorize this. You want to just show it to you because this is broadcasted and it's recorded, so you can go back and get it. Vince, any parting words before we get out of here?
No, man. I mean, that was like a clinic on a very, very difficult thing to do. And I hope people who are interested in building products will go back and listen and that they'll connect with Justin. It's more than a notion, man. The one thing I guess I would leave with is I remember Justin saying to me in the early days, and it's something that I have thought about a lot when you think about a product, is the first thing you might want to do is to design the box. And I never forgot that. And by design the box, he just meant like before you write a line of code, before you send something out to get created in a plant, what would go on the box, right? Well, how would you describe it to people who saw it on the shelf somewhere in the store? Design the box. And if people are excited by what you can put on that box, then maybe it's time to start thinking about coding. And I just thought that was just a great way to approach product development. So anyway, I thought it was great, man.
Yeah.
Nothing more to add.
Thanks, man. I mean, I definitely get scared sometimes of information overload, and hopefully I didn't do that today, guys, but I probably did. But at the end of the day, the big idea, like what's the big idea? The big idea is exactly what Vince just said, and I was trying to sort of have that idea bubble up, which is understand how to vet your idea, write it down, and then just as Vince said, like I used to say, I should have put that in here, Vince. I forgot I used to say that. Design the box. I said design. If you're old enough in this audience to remember when you used to buy software Before we were buying it online, you would go
In
to
the
the store
box.
and you would actually you get a box and it'd be a CD inside that box, and you would
Right.
plug that into your computer and install it, and you'd be standing there reading the box, reading the back, you know, tell you everything about that software and what you needed to know. And so that's essentially really what you need to do. So, I mean, it's still a valuable exercise to design that box.
So, man, this was great. And this is what we want to keep adding. I know a lot of people have aspirations outside of real estate, launching their business. Now that you're making some money doing some wholesaling, you want to go out and actually explore all those things that you have been thinking about. I wish I had the money. I wish I had the money. Now you're getting the money with wholesale and real estate. And now you're like, I want to go ahead and execute this idea. Coming here and learning some of your techniques so you don't blow that bag that you went out there and made on doing it the wrong way, and learn from guys who've launched companies and done stuff like that. Next week, we're going to be live. I'm going to be live from the Bahamas. I don't know where you're going to be at, but I will be.
Not the
All over
Bahamas.
the world.
Must be nice, man.
Yeah, I'm actually flying to the Bahamas to go meet up with Daryl Freeman. He's got a house out there. We're going to hang out and talk about big business and talk about, everybody needs a little motivation when it comes to seeing the higher, what you aspire to be. So I'm just going to be able to spend a few days with him. And then Vince and I, we head over to Texas next week, or a couple weeks. And
Yeah, I actually forgot about that. Yeah.
yeah, don't forget about it. And then I'm going to tell you what, Texas, if y'all don't warm up, I'm not coming.
How about that?
Yeah, I don't know if there's snow in Austin right now, but y'all need to figure that out. I'll be there on the 25th. Figure it out, okay? Because I'm not leaving the Bahamas going straight to snow. I might as well go back home.
Right. Right.
Or stay the trip longer.
Exactly.
Other than that, man, I appreciate you guys joining us here on Launchpad episode 3. We'll be back next week, next Tuesday. I'll be live from the Bahamas. These guys will probably be somewhere where it's snowing, but they still gonna be cherry. The fireplace is gonna be running, and we're gonna talk about a big topic. We're gonna talk about some current events. We're gonna talk about real estate, and maybe somebody will bring another big idea, and then eventually, hey, we're gonna start bringing guests on as we start to expand. It's gonna be fun. So as we talk about how to launch a big idea, we're gonna bring people on that have done a big idea. We're gonna be talking about real estate. We're gonna bring on those people as well. But as always, make sure you guys follow us on Instagram, follow us on Facebook groups that we have, and go follow Justin's YouTube channel, which is
And it's not going to be like information overload. I'm going to break all this stuff down into little pieces.
Exactly. Well, you got more time.
Yeah, you got more time.
Yeah, exactly. So I appreciate y'all. I'll see y'all on the flip side. Respect, and I'm out.
Respect. Peace.